Coincidentally, March is actually Fraud Prevention Month. I didn't know that. I like to think that they called it Fraud Prevention Month because I planned this in March, but I don't think the federal government did that. Hey, it works on this computer. Wow, it was the other computer that was a piece of crap. So anyone can be a victim. Scammers are always adapting and improving their techniques. AI is becoming a big issue within scamming as far as creating fake profiles and even voice cloning. Scammers can and will pretend to be anyone, be it officials, friends, family, and even you. Recently, the Delta Police actually had a press release about scammers pretending to be them using caller ID cloning. Scammers do not care who you are or how much money you have or do not have. Scammers scammed my brother-in-law who doesn't really have much out of $24,000 US, and he was on disability. And it was a romance scam. Scammers exist across multiple channels: social media, snail mail, which is a new thing. Well, it's not new, but it's coming back, online and offline. Scammers know no geographic boundaries. The scammer that hit my brother-in-law, we believe, was in Ghana. Scammers now use AI to gather information and build identities. So social media profiles, they use AI to scour social media to get all sorts of information. So those little trivia questions you answer, or the things that you post about how Facebook will take away, or you deny Facebook the ability to look at your pictures, that's a scam. So preventing fraud, stay informed about new scams and how to avoid them. The Canadian fraud, I can't remember what they're called. I've got their link at the end of this. They do a great job. Like I said, BC Crime Watch, I post a lot of stuff on there if you're on Facebook. Always verify unexpected requests or offers before acting. If it feels off, take a step back, investigate further. Avoid oversharing personal and sensitive information online. That's a big one. I look like a friendless leper on social media. Nobody sees my friends except for my friends, and that's only if they're mutual friends. Secure your information, use strong, unique passwords, no pet names. If you have to use a pet name, just replace I's with exclamation marks or ones and A's with @ symbols, that kind of thing. And use multi-factor authentication. That is where you will get a message on your cell phone every time you log into your account from a different device. It can be a pain in the butt, but it can be a lifesaver, particularly with banking. Phishing uses deceptive emails, websites, or text messages. The whole purpose of this is to steal login information. They send you to a fake Interac site. There's marketplace scams out there where they'll pretend they want to buy something off you, and then they'll send you either a deposit or they'll send you payment, and it's a fake Interac link. It looks like the real thing, but it just collects your passwords. Tax refund scams that are parking tickets, this is the same thing. QR codes, which is called quishing. When I first started talking about this, IT guys were saying I was full of crap, except for one guy I know. Basically, they can put a sticker over top of an existing QR code. Like if you go to those parking meters, don't use them, because if it says that it's going to install an app on your phone, they can install whatever you want, whatever they want, and then it can steal your data. So they'll install fraudulent apps, malware. They'll redirect you to their own website as opposed to the website that you think you're going to, and they can either use a sticker or completely replace it. I've seen restaurants that have little signs that say pay your bill by scanning this QR code. TD Bank used to have things, and I actually went up to them and said, guys, this is like really stupid. It was, install our app by scanning this QR code. Like, really? Caller ID spoofing, that was just mentioned with the Delta Police. They had somebody mimicking their phone number, and it's happening all across Canada, in fact all across North America and even the world. And they're not even local. And the thing is, people will sit there and, my phone number has been spoofed. I got a phone call the other day from someone saying, you just called me, and he was in Ontario. It's like, no man, I didn't. That was a scammer who was spoofing my number. So if you block that number that just called you, you could very well be blocking a friend or a family member because that's not the real caller. SIM swapping, it's a similar thing, and they basically They'll call you up and get lots of information out of you and then contact your cell phone company and say that you lost your phone, and they request a new SIM card, and they now receive all of your calls, including your two-factor authentication or password reset messages. Tech support scams, they just pop up windows that say your computer is infected. It's not. I remember the first time my mom got one, when she got her computer for the first time. She said, yes, she told me that my computer was infected. Who did? On the computer, she did. It's like, who's she? And she goes, but I didn't trust them. It's like, okay, that's all that matters. Identity theft. So they will steal social media profiles. So sometimes with marketplace scams, they've got profiles that have been around since 2007 are worth a lot of money on the dark web, because scammers will buy them after somebody hacks them, and then they will go out and do their marketplace scams, and people will trust them because their profile has been around since 2007. Unfortunately, it's been stolen, and I've had friends who have had their accounts stolen, either weak passwords. One case, he was actually sent a text message from somebody who cloned a friend, and that message had a link in it that actually, basically gave away his login information somehow. I don't know how he did it. I think he says he just opened a picture, but I don't know the whole scoop. But he lost his account. All his friends were getting scam text messages with the same link. So they're looking for account profiles to steal and then sell. Scammers create social media profile cloning. They'll create fake yous. So if you have your friends list public, they will, and a lot of your pictures, they'll create you, and then they'll send friend requests to all of your publicly listed friends, who will then think it's your new profile, and then they will say, oh, hi, by the way, I found this great investment opportunity, or here's a link, click on this, or anything. Basically, they aim to deceive your friends. So if you like your friends, hide them. Grandparent and emergency scams. This one's particularly sad. Once again, uses social media. I remember a profile I saw where somebody it was a grandmother, she had shared a picture of her grandchild. Or no, it was a parent that shared a picture of their child and said, happy birthday to my son. And then her mother said, yeah, happy birthday to my lovely grandson, and then mentioned his nickname. And his real name was there as well. They knew his age, and what he looked like. And so that's just asking for somebody to go up to this person and to the grandparent and say, okay, I'm so-and-so, or I'm in trouble, send me money. They may use urgent language or threats to prompt immediate action. They do request secrecy. And like I said, they claim to be in trouble. Scammers target family, friends of all ages. So it's not necessarily just grandparents. Rental scam. As a renter, this is bad. They will pretend to be renting out a house or an apartment, and it's not theirs to rent. They either will not be there, like they're in another country, or sometimes they actually rent out Airbnb units and show them as if they're renting them out. They collect deposits from multiple people, and then people try to move in, and it's like, hold on a second. So red flags, too good to be true, urgent requests, no in-person meetings, always verify ownership, inspect the property, even do a search for the address. And if you find out that it's an Airbnb, there's your sign. Lottery scam, quite similar to all of the other scams. They just, send you a message, even, send you a letter saying you've won. They'll either pretend to send you the money by a fake Interac link, which is phishing, and they'll steal your password, or they'll ask you to pay taxes to claim the non-existent prize. It can be online or snail mail. Very official looking documents. If it seems too good to be true, it is. Investment scams, same thing, promise high levels of return. They sometimes are part of romance scams or pig butchering, which I will get into later. Use professional looking websites. They appear to be legitimate, and they may pressure victims to act quickly to avoid missing out. FOMO is a big thing. Romance catfishing typically occurs on dating sites. Like I said, my brother-in-law, $24,000 USD. Random compliments from fake profiles. I see these all the time where somebody comments on someone's post in social media and says, oh, I really love what you just wrote. I looked at your profile and I hope you don't think I'm too forward, but I'd like to be friends with you. And sometimes they pretend to be military or retired police or something like that just to build trust. And they're scammers, and the comments are pretty much identical. And all you have to do is copy and paste that comment into a search bar, and you'll see people with bots with different names making the same comments. And even a friend's widow almost fell for it at one time. It was really sad. And they eventually ask for money, citing emergencies or travel expenses. They manage to persist for years, months, causing significant or financial emotional damage. And when it goes on for a long time, it's called pig butchering, because it seems like an odd term, but basically it's a long-term grift where they will drain you slowly and consistently so that you don't notice, and they really want to keep you on for as long as possible. They'll request secrecy. In the case of my brother-in-law, people were telling him he was being scammed. He never even spoke to this person. He was just sending messages. He thought he was married to her. So people were obviously telling him, look, you're being scammed. And so he brought this forward to her and said, why can't we talk? And then, of course, she'd use this, the fear of rejection and say, well, if you trust them more than me and you don't love me, then fine. And, so at that point, he was backing down because he didn't want to lose her. So that's extreme emotional manipulation. She asked for money for surgeries, for medical conditions, a wedding dress. He paid for a wedding dress because he thought he was married to her. Sextortion, this one is really sad. There's a lot of information on this out there. There's been some cases where some terrible things have happened because these scammers will target teens and sometimes adults as well. So just be aware of this. If you've got kids, just look for the signs of just drastic behavior changes. And sometimes they'll start with romance scams, then get them to send a picture, and then, there was a famous story where somebody was from Denmark or Holland, I think it was Holland, and he did this to a local girl, and sadly, well, we won't go there. Job employment scams offer attractive job opportunities. I see those ones all the time on social media. Generally, they will say, DM me. They won't leave a phone number. They'll say you work from home. They'll make it sound really, really appealing. They use it to collect personal information for identity theft. It can also involve money laundering or being a money mule. Money mule scams. So what are they? Criminals recruit people to transfer illegally obtained money on their behalf. Job scams offering to work from home. They can use romance scams as well, saying, hey, I can't use a PayPal account because I live somewhere else and they don't allow it. Can you transfer the money for me? And sometimes they're just saying, just to avoid a tax thing, can you help me out? And I'll give you a kickback. You won't get a kickback. Marketplace scams. So they use fraudulent websites or listings on legitimate platforms like Facebook. They sometimes use new profiles. They also use legitimate profiles that were stolen, as I mentioned before. They offer suspiciously low prices. They may either never deliver the items, they'll send you counterfeit goods, or I think I mentioned before, it can also involve going the other way around, where you're offering to sell something and they will send you a link saying that they're paying for it, but it is a phishing scam. It'll lead to another website and steal your login information for your Interac. One way around that is using immediate deposit, or basically it deposits right away without you having to do anything. Event ticket scams. I saw some on the posting for this event. People were saying, oh, I can't go, I've got tickets for sale. It's like, dude, it's a free event. And at one point I said, is your mother proud of what you do for a living, you low-life scum? And the thing is, even though I did that, I did it knowing that it was a bot. There's no person involved really other than somebody who programmed it. All they do is they send this thing out there and it looks for keywords like events. It's all AI driven. There's even AI bots out there that will communicate with each other. I've seen profiles like this, where they're clearly fake profiles and they're talking to each other and making themselves look real. So once again, new or hacked established profiles, anything to look trustable. Barnside Festival had a whole bunch of those. Puppy scams, they use cute photos of dogs and even cats, stolen from legitimate breeders. Once again, they'll ask for money up front to reserve the pet, and you'll never get it. The key signs of this is there's multiple listings with the same photos, so you can do a search through TinEye. You can also do a search on social media for the exact same wording. Chances are you'll find multiple profiles with exactly the same ad, word for word, except for maybe a different town. Door-to-door scammers, so home repair service call fraud. They go door to door. They say your furnace is broken or your roof is leaking. They use high pressure tactics. I've seen them say, oh, we're doing work in your neighborhood. No, they're not. They're just going door to door. They may potentially be legitimate, students doing the sales, but they're working for a company that teaches them how to lie, and that's not. One in our neighborhood was going around, I think you might remember that, where they were going up to people, they were asking people to use their bathroom. And multiple people were next door to each other, and the person was hanging around for an inordinate amount of time, potentially to look at information and get names, because they'd go to the neighbors and say, oh, I was over at your neighbor's house, John. And they'd start telling stories, and they're just doing this long, wound-up tale. It's quite intricate. Miracle cures, so health and medical scams, I see far too many of these. Snake oil salespeople. I saw one in a Facebook group in Delta. At this point, my wife had major headaches that turned out to be a brain tumor. It caught my attention when the person said, I can cure headaches. And then I looked into it, and it's like, hold on a second, this is an MLM scam. This person is straight out of high school. She has no medical training. And she's pretending to be able to cure some pretty serious things. They pressure you to act quickly, fake online pharmacies, cheap drugs, although that's more of a US thing. Promise to treat multiple unrelated conditions with some miracle powder. Yeah, okay. Psychic or fortune telling. Some of that can veer on entertainment, so I'm not really going to get into that too much, but I do see the ads around. And there's people that say they can, lift curses, put curses on people, get love, people who dumped you to love you again. Yeah, okay. And there's always flyers in parking lots. I actually called one up one time and said, and the person got really mad at me. I said, if you were really good at what you did, you would have known that I'm not interested in your crap. Oh, the person was mad. Oh, and then they said, well, what's your license plate? So we won't do that again. I go, well, if you're a good psychic, you should, I'm thinking what my license plate now is. What is it? And then they hung up. Tax scams, same thing as before with all of the other scams. They send text messages, emails. CRA recently had one where they were pretending to be a tax, there it is on the bottom, tax processing. So they were stealing login information, and there was a big warning about that. And sometimes they'll just, phone and say you owe money. This is the Canada, well, sometimes they say Internal Revenue Service, and they're calling Canada, so they're not too bright. And they say, you need to call us, you need to pay up, or you will be going to jail. We'll send a sheriff to your door. Debt collection scams, same thing. They threaten to send people to your door, say you owe them money. When you don't, they pressure for immediate action. Sometimes even ask you to pay through gift cards. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Charity scams, they exploit natural disasters. Unfortunately, some of these are real charities, and these scammers will just go around pretending to be them, and it really screws up the legitimate charities. They even may provide fake tax receipts. ATM skimming, they'll put a little reader, and these chips cost $7 or less. They're very small. I've bought them for other projects that I've done, and they're ESP32 is one of them. And you can do multiple things with them, including a fake card reader. So it just sits there and scans the card as it goes through. And there's some technologies like Apple Pay that say they're immune to that, which they may be, but eventually they may not be. So just be cautious. Keep an eye on your credit card statements. It's really that easy. And your bank statements for any odd charges. They're constantly evolving, and never assume your tech is safe. Old school scamming. So parking lot product sales. I remember almost buying some speakers once when I was 20 years old. Snail mail inheritance scams. I've seen that where they send out a letter to people, and there's been quite a few of those that have come out. It really surprised me that this was happening. They basically say you've inherited some money, contact us. We're a law firm somewhere or other. Pickpocketing, distraction thefts. Distraction thefts can happen in stores as far as retailers, and pickpocketing the same thing. Parking lot charity scams, we see those all the time. They sometimes operate in teams, and they, bunches of them leave in nice cars. I know there was one at Tawasin that people were posting about. I don't know how legitimate their complaints were, but it seemed legit. 10 signs of a scam. This was originally in the original slide, and I just figured or the trivia slide. So, too good to be true, promises of used rewards, pressures to act fast, urgency attacks or tactics, fear of missing out, just think about it, threats of consequences, if you do not act, claims as such shutting down your bank account, upfront insecure payment requests, so asking for you to pay with gift cards or crypto, for processing fees or unlock fees. Poor grammar or weird phrasing, emails with typos, awkward wording, but you know what? Sometimes they actually don't screw up on that. So, and sometimes legitimate businesses actually screw up on spelling. Unsolicited offers, random calls and emails, no verifiable reviews, although there's also businesses out there that sell fake reviews on Google. Overly personal appeals, tugging at your heartstrings, sob stories, claiming they specifically chose you, inconsistent stories, just constantly changing. Lies trip over themselves. Mismatched communication, says it from a big company, but the email doesn't match. Caller ID does not match the company's location, and it's important to note any number can be cloned. And so you have the power. If you fall victim to a scammer, do not feel bad. You are not the first. You will not be the last. And they do not care about you or who you are. It's not personal. You do not owe them anything. Report their butts. I should have realized there's kids in here. So here's the link. So the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, it's got a really long link that's both French and English. I have no idea why they did that. Getcybersafe.gc.ca is a lot easier, but they both have different information, so they're both worth looking at. The RCMP is also doing a lot of stuff recently.